Greetings and salutations, viewers and listeners. Welcome to episode 117 of Word Ninjas Live. I am your host, Charles, coming to you tonight with my regular hosts, Will.
Hello, I am Will.
Hi.
And
I thought you were going to use my name first. I am the nameless Justin.
unlike all the other named Justins out there.
Right. I looked at my birth certificate and it's actually blank. It's kind of weird.
We are coming to you tonight to talk about stuff and things and whatnots. But specifically, games. We are discussing games we've played, games we're interested in, games that have been a little lackluster. Specifically in regards to story, lore, character development, and anything else we decide to chat about tonight, really. And this is going to be an open forum. I'm not going to make people go down their very long bulleted lists, because that would just be silly. So, I open up the floor. Let's talk video games. How about we start with ones we actually enjoyed because of story?
So many.
How about we name some specifically?
I'll start. So I think the litmus test for good story and good character development is it as good as or better than Red Dead Redemption, which is a game that came out on the PS3, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I have. The PS4 is out now. Okay, PS3, yes. I haven't played it all the way through, but I've basically been in a room where somebody has played it all the way through.
Would you say Red Dead Redemption is your 7 on your litmus test, then?
Yes, plus 7.
Science humor.
Oh, ions. Anyway, so I don't remember a ton of the specifics of the story, but what I can say is the open world, very similar to other games of the same company like Grand Theft Auto, which I also have on this list, have an extremely rich world, a living world. The characters feel alive and they feel like they're always doing something, and you can kind of mess with whatever they're doing and they react appropriately. I can't say too much for the full storyline because I haven't played it from start to finish, and I hear the ending is really good, but I won't spoil it here. But it's more the characters and the way the world reacts to you. It's definitely better in that sense than like Grand Theft Auto 5 I'm specifically listing. Grand Theft Auto 5 has a very, very good story, but the world around is kind of mannequin-y, where there's some characters walking around, but they don't really serve any purpose. Almost all the characters in Red Dead Redemption serve some sort of purpose or are doing a realistic activity that isn't just walking about. And I think we can say the same thing for a lot of Bethesda games. Although some of their stories can be lackluster at times, they at least try to have an open world rich with history and background, and it's there if you want to look for it. I know Will has the Elder Scrolls on his list, and I specifically crossed out Skyrim because I have some deep-rooted problems with the story in that game.
Story or not, the world is impressive.
Yes, it's a beautiful world, and everything mostly acts as it were, and it's very well populated, and there's tons of stuff to do.
I give Bethesda a lot of credit for their NPCs, for unlike other games, if a named NPC in your Bethesda game dies, they're dead. Forever. whether you like it or not.
Yes. There are the rare exception where it would be story breaking if that character died, in which case,
Right.
but those are very rare.
Yeah. I know in my version of Skyrim, the stable master outside of Whiterun died very early on, so I can't buy horses there.
You could take the horses.
I couldn't take the horses, but if I wanted to legally purchase and acquire the horses, I just can't because there's no one there to sell them anymore.
That's interesting. I thought a lot of the shopkeepers, if you killed them and like dragged their corpse out of the building, then another shopkeeper will take its place.
Oh no, they died outside. I walked outside of Whiterun past the stables, and they were being attacked by, I forget what they're called, those dogs that are usually with the vampires.
Ah.
I don't remember their exact name, but they're always with the vampires. They were just being mauled by these dogs. And by the time I showed up, the owner of the stable and his son were already dead. And no one's replaced them. Shrug.
Speaking of characters and whether or not they react, the NPCs react appropriately. I haven't played the original Bioshock and Bioshock 2 in a little while, so you'll have to tell me if this holds true for those games as well, Will. But in Bioshock Infinite, I felt like if the character wasn't a story character, they were basically just kind of standing still, not really doing anything. And I'm not talking about the characters that attack you. I mean, like in interspersed, there's supposed to be a living world in Bioshock Infinite, but it's a bunch of people kind of standing around and they say their dialogue and then they're done and their dialogue repeats occasionally, but they don't. You can't interact with them in any meaningful way. They're more of a background piece than something really alive and truly interactable.
That doesn't exist in Bioshock 1 and 2.
Right, because everyone's trying to kill you, literally.
Everyone's pretty much a splicer at this point, and the few people that are not splicers are story people that you interact with. And honestly, most of them, you're never even in the same room as them. When you interact with them, they're usually they're talking to you through. In Bioshock 1, I think there's only one person that you ever talk to that you don't kill that you are in the same room with at one point. Everyone else and most of the people in Bioshock 2, you communicate with them either through windows or through two-way television screens and cameras.
Yeah, it's a very on-rails experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's what you get for a corridor shooter.
Assassin's Creed is like that, though. There's like a lot of people in the Assassin's Creed worlds, but their only purpose is to be a crowd for you to hide in. For the most part,
there's a little bit of an exception there because at least in Bioshock Infinite, like the people you encounter are rare. Like the world is not filled with people. They're like smatterings of people occasionally. I feel like in the Assassin's Creed, I've only played the first couple, but I felt like them being a big crowd, it kind of turned into, instead of individual characters, it was sort of like a living hive of people.
Right.
And,
a city.
Yes. And much like a city that you're in, you don't tend to interact with the other people in it. You kind of do your own thing. And
unless you're picking their pockets.
Yes.
Or they're begging you for gold or something. Right.
And what I like about a lot of the Bethesda games, and I have another game on here that's not talked about a lot, This War of Mine, is games where you have the opportunity to kind of tell your own story. You could literally open up Skyrim and never do any of the quests, and just futz around and do your own thing and make your own story.
That's pretty much my Skyrim experience.
And that's arguably more fun than the main quest, which is kind of sad in a way. So This War of Mine is an interesting game, and it's on the top of the list specifically because it has a little bit of a lore just to get you going. But basically, you're in like a bombed out building, and you're just trying to survive. it's not like a survival horror like a Rust style game. It's a 2D like point and click adventure almost. Uh, and all the characters are very lifelike and they have personality, and they have names and background stories, and the characters hold a lot of emotional weight, and so you don't want to get them killed, and when they're hurt and they're sick, you get physically upset. Um, and you have to go out and collect supplies. And while you're collecting supplies, you encounter people. You could encounter a hospital that's trying to take care of the sick, and you have to decide morally if you want to rob the hospital for everything it's worth, or try to work with the hospital to gain some supplies or do some trading. And then you could go to a house that's already in the process of being raided, and you've got these raiders that are like, screwing up this family that's already in this house, and you could fight off the raiders and help the family, or you can join the raiders. It's all sort of what you make of it. And I haven't really seen any like consequences to the effect of, oh, you're now a bad guy and people treat you differently. It's more of how it weighs on your own soul, you as the player, which I found really good. Similarly, the game Heavy Rain is, while the gameplay is pretty quick time event-y, what I found interesting about Heavy Rain is that there was enough story holding me to it and enough compelling character development that some of the quick time events were like you're playing with your long lost son or your estranged son, and a lot of the quick time events are like, oh, you need to help your son learn how to throw this boomerang. And I felt like I really wanted to succeed in those quick time events. But the quick time events where it was life and death of an adult character, I didn't really care about. So I thought it was interesting that I was like, I have to be a good father. And that was my takeaway from Heavy Rain versus the rest of the story. And I thought that was a really cool effect.
I mean, if we're talking Bethesda games, I'm going to bring up one on my list that I didn't even realize it was a Bethesda game until I played it, Dishonored. Which,
a very underappreciated game.
It was a beautiful game, and what I liked about it was that you could manipulate the story. It's not very on rails. Your actions in the levels and how you go through the levels and how you do pretty much everything can affect the gameplay and the outcome. Like, if you're very discreet, if you try not to kill people, if you just avoid confrontations or knock people unconscious, you go through the game with what they call very low chaos, and that can prevent a lot of diseased, sick, bad people, because there's a disease rampaging through the city in the game, from being in later levels. But the more people you kill, the less guards there are to protect the city, so the more of these sick people there are trying to eat your face. Plus, whether you choose to eliminate your intended targets of each level lethally or non-lethally can change the outcome of the game, which I like a lot, because then you have a lot of say for the game, and I think they did it really well. The story was also really interesting, and the DLC story was really interesting too. And I'm kind of interested in looking forward to the sequel that they're supposedly coming out soon. They revealed it at the last E3.
It'll come out eventually.
I wish The Walking Dead, the season 1, had more actual branching and not fake branching.
I've heard that it doesn't really matter what you decide.
Yes, the first playthrough makes you really think like you have a lot of agency in the story. But on a second playthrough, even if you do like a lot of the opposite choices, you pretty much end up in the same spot seeing the same things. And I understand that there has to be some connectivity for story purposes, and because it would be very difficult to have to animate and voice act all of the other choices. But there's a lot in there that it happens kind of no matter what, and this character dies or leaves the story pretty much no matter what you do eventually, and that was sort of disappointing. I will say the overall story and the through line of the two main characters was really good, and I really enjoyed it, especially the end, which is heart-wrenching. Um, I just wish it had more pathing in the story, more agency.
Mm. Kind of like what they did with Until Dawn, which I didn't play, but I've watched several people play through it.
Yes, and I've heard several people play through it.
Your decisions do change a lot in that game. Can change the game a lot, and sometimes there's a real sense of urgency because the game will make you make choices in a pinch with a very short time limit, and you don't know which one is the one to safety and which one to death.
Right.
So it could be a little bit nerve-wrenching.
Especially as a lot of those decisions are not even remotely clear until it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Even if you get all the clues and all the totems that give you the premonitions, it's not always obvious what you're supposed to do.
No.
It's like Minesweeper. No matter how good you are at Minesweeper, occasionally you get into the situation where it's literally a coin flip.
Yep.
And then sometimes you land on the bomb.
When the game is like, you need to run left or run right, and a monster is down one of those two pathways, and you don't know which one.
Should have gotten that path clue.
That one only frustrated me a bit in that a lot of the characters had quote-unquote on-screen deaths, but then they came back. Those characters were incredibly durable up until about the end.
Yeah. It's one of those situations with that game where unless you see a corpse, assume that they're not dead.
Unless the head goes pop, they could potentially come up again.
Yeah. If it's one of those things where they just fall down a deep, dark hole, there's a good chance they're still alive. But if their head gets ripped off... I have a few other things on here. I threw down the Final Fantasy series for having good plot on a case-by-case basis.
I was going to say, like the overall franchise or just specific ones, some are better than others?
Some are better than others. I put down series because it's also a matter of opinion. I think we've discussed on this channel before, some people really love Final Fantasy VII and aren't fans of Final Fantasy VIII, and then there's the other people that really like Final Fantasy VIII but aren't a fan of Final Fantasy VII, which is myself.
Never mind any of the others in the franchise.
Except for 9 and 10, most of the other ones usually get ignored. 3 and 6 come up sometimes, but there's a weirdness there because 6 in America was 3 in Japan, something like that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of reorderings
Yeah.
because of that. But I don't remember what the specifics were.
It's confusing.
But I have played through all of the early ones, and I will say that they're early RPGs, so take them for what they are. But even with the limited ability to have content on, the not disc, but the cartridge at the time or whatever, there's a lot in there. Even all the background characters have a little, usually they're advice givers. But they still have something to say, and they're still interesting characters, and they do have a little bit of background.
And I like that they've mostly kept that, because even in the more recent ones, you can not talk to almost anybody, and they'll have something to say.
Similarly, the Pokemon series.
I have that on my list.
Oh, do you? Nice.
Yep.
I have yet to finish a single Pokemon game.
Oh, you have a second page of your list.
Yeah, I kind of carried over to the second page with my list in the show notes.
Oh, I haven't played Undertale yet.
I just got Undertale today. I was saving that one. I'm going to say this for the Pokemon series. I feel like plot-wise, because they do have a plot, but I feel like...
Yeah?
Well, like, the main plot of all of them is raise your Pokemon, get the 8 gym badges, defeat the Elite Four, become the champion. That is the plot of the main Pokemon games for the general series, not getting into the Mystery Dungeon series.
Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap. I think they had a series about the Pokemon Rangers a while back. And those have their own stories to them. But for the general Pokemon series, it was weird. You got to go on a case-by-case basis, because I've played most of them. Like the original one, there was a plot, sort of, with Team Rocket, but not really.
I feel like a lot of the plot is disjointed. Like, you'll go to a region and there's some shit going down, and you have to deal with it. But then after you leave that region, it's pretty much done. And then you go to another region, and some other shit is going down in a different way.
Well, you got to take it on a game-by-game basis, kind of like Final Fantasy. You can't connect the plot of Final Fantasy VII to Final Fantasy VIII or whatever.
That's true, too.
So, like, there was a pretty decent plot in Silver and Gold, but it wasn't that great. It was later on when you got to Ruby and Sapphire that there was an overarching plot. There was an actual enemy, 2 enemies, depending on which version you got, was the one that was really the bad one. And they're actually trying to save the world, but their actions are going to lead to the destruction of the world, and you have to stop them. So that became a theme throughout all of them now. Ruby, Sapphire had that. Diamond and Pearl had that. Black and White had that. And I liked what they did with Black and White and Black and White 2, which actually do connect. And I admit I was disappointed with X and Y. I did not get what the bad guys were trying to do. It just did not make sense. They were basically just a crazy cult of rich people that wanted to get rid of all the poor people.
They're Republicans?
There was something like the guy in charge thought the world was doomed, so he needed to reduce the population so that there was a better chance for the survivors. He had done all the math and even had a specific number of people that could survive. And he's like, any more and we're doomed. Even one person more than this and the world is doomed. But if we can get it down to below this number, we can start over again and be fine. So he started a group of people to get together to be the people that were saved. And instead of going with, like, he started with getting some of the smartest minds, and then he just went with whoever could afford the really high fee. So it got to the point where all the members of his group were just all the people who could afford, like, the $1 million to get in.
Lovely.
So it's like, there's a lot of hypocrisy in what you're trying to say there. So, no, I'm going to stop you.
I don't even remember what the plot of Platinum was, but that's the one that I got the farthest in.
Platinum... which generation was that?
I had it on the DS or 3DS, I forget which one.
I think that was after Gold and Silver.
Yeah, it was kind of a follow-up to those.
Gold
Or
and
the next one from that.
What
It had
was-
something to do with like a galaxy-esque Pokemon. Or a
Look it up.
galactic one.
Oh, is that the one where you go through time on some sort of tower thing?
Oh,
Maybe.
that's the one with
It was weird.
that dude. Which generation is it? Tell me which generation. It's not Gold and Silver. It's Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah. It was weird. Entertaining, but
Diamond
weird.
and Pearl was Time and Space. Those were the two big, because all the big rare Pokemon now are essentially gods of something, and Diamond and
Hmm.
Pearl was giant Pokemon that controlled time and space, Dialga and Palkia. And basically, the leader of the group wanted to rewrite the world in his own image. And he was going to
As you
use
do.
either the Pokemon of time or space to do it, depending whether you had Diamond or Pearl. I don't know the exact pot of Platinum, though, because I didn't play it.
Yeah, it's been forever since I played it, and I didn't get close to finishing it because I had too much fun just wandering around picking up random Pokemon.
That's always fun, too.
I did find a random crater that used to be a lake filled with nothing but sad Magikarp.
I think that's plot relevant to that one. I don't remember.
It
Some of them
was.
kind of
You couldn't
paste
get
together.
past them because of reasons.
Hmm.
They were trying to use Splash even though there was no water, so you couldn't pass.
All they'd ever do is try to splash. Splash, splash. But there's some decent world building that they put into that, depending on which version you get, because each one has its own origin story too. What was I saying? Oh, Final Fantasy. Yeah, also good with the plot and the story and the whatnot.
I'd toss up some relevant ones for this week, considering they've had some. Actually, this month even, they've had some recent releases to the franchises. The Fallout series, since Fallout 4 came out yesterday now.
Hmm.
And I know I've played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas extensively, more than I wish to admit to.
I've dabbled more in Fallout
Storylines
3.
are storyline is neither here nor there. It's entertaining, but kind of like Skyrim, it's more fun just wandering, seeing what there is to see in the world they've created, and some of the little side quests that there are. And the DLC for New Vegas, I know, is fantastic. I don't remember Fallout 3 DLC offhand.
I've done one of the DLC for Fallout 3. I got abducted by an alien.
Ah, that one.
I haven't done any of the other ones. I'm just upset. The last time I played, my level 73 speech skill only gave me a 33% success chance at a speech. I was not
Because it was
happy about
probably an expertise speech thing.
it.
Some of them 100 even.
That weird dilemma over in Canterbury Commons with the Ant Agonizer and the Mechanist.
Oh, them. I mean, I didn't look for that one. I just happened to stumble upon it, so I was not expecting it at all. That one actually was pretty hilarious, but frustrating if you didn't have the right stats.
Mm. I didn't. I was led there because I was at my home base and the radio was on GNR, and Three Dog said something about two crazy people duking it out at Canterbury Commons, one fighting with robots and the other with an army of ants. And I was like, okay, I gotta go and check this out. What the hell is going on? Screw saving the world. I gotta figure out what's going on with the army of robots and the army of ants.
Mm. I hope there's some of that level of side stories in Fallout 4.
I'd imagine they'd have to do it. It's Bethesda. They always do crazy stuff.
Yeah. And that one's in Boston. And I am kind of intrigued as to how some of the mechanics of that one are going to work out, being able to effectively build your own little town or base or some such. And there might even be tower defense mechanics in there.
That's what they were talking about. Sounds fun.
But as for the storyline, I don't know. I have yet to see anyone upload a full gameplay of it yet. Most people are just having fun going about finding things.
Yeah, There's only one Let's Player I follow has loaded up video on it, and he said, I'm going to do the beginning, the intro, and then I'm not going to do any more story stuff. I'm just going to, once I have reign of full open world, I'm going to just have fun.
Mm-hmm. And another one that came out yesterday was Tomb Raider, or Tomb Raider Rise of the Tomb Raider, or however that title went.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that at some point. I really like the first Tomb Raider.
Like the original, or
the first reboot. It wasn't as spelunking as it could have been, but the overall story and character was good. I hear Tomb Raider 2 takes what they learned from the first one and does a lot more with the tomb raiding part of Tomb Raider. Consider the first one sort of an origin story.
Which it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I put back-to-back Tomb Raider with Mirror's Edge as two games that had a lot of really good female protagonist storytelling and world building. The Mirror's Edge world is very unique and very cool and extremely creative in a very different way than Tomb Raider is. But Tomb Raider also has its perks. It's got, it's basically got this whole island that you end up traversing. And while the world is a little more claustrophobic because of it's just an island, it's very rich with detail, and there's a lot of culture on the island, and warring factions and past worshipping gods and all sorts of weird stuff going on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the new Tomb Raider.
I haven't played a Tomb Raider game since way back in the 90s.
I own all of them, apparently. I bought a collector's edition a while back, apparently. It's on my Steam. I should go through them all. I don't think they hold up well. At least the first one. I don't know about the rest of them, but they had tank controls, which are awful by today's standards.
Yeah, I got the same collector's edition a while ago during a Steam sale, because Steam sales. I know I tried to play the first one. It has not aged gracefully.
No. Shooting dogs is hard, and the first third of that game is just nothing but hordes of dogs coming after you. If I remember
Just to date it, if you had an original disc copy of the first Tomb Raider, you could not run it on any current Windows system because it requires DOS.
Oh my.
I think even the original Tomb Raider 2 requires DOS.
I played that game when it came out.
A DOS emulator, like DOSBox?
Maybe. I never tried it, but I know
you could need to custom mod the game files, probably. I'm sure there's some fan-made patches out there.
I mean, I have a very, very sad PC or laptop down in the basement that's running on possibly Vista.
It might not work. It's
also been hooked up to an external hard drive that runs Windows 3.1, thanks to Calvin.
That might not work either just because it's too old. I think you want like 95, 98, and 2000.
Yeah.
Because that was about the time the first Tomb Raider came out.
How about Windows ME?
Well, if you can get it to run. That didn't run even when it came out.
I'll get Calvin to deal with that. And another one that came out yesterday or the day before was StarCraft II Legacy of the Void, which was the third kind of standalone game / expansion pack for StarCraft II.
I heard you don't even need StarCraft. You can play it on its own. You don't need the StarCraft 2 or anything to play it.
Just like with Heart of the Swarm, which was the second part of the overall story arc, I think they're relatively standalone. You don't necessarily need the first part to play them all. But
Right.
to understand the story, it's integral.
Yes.
Right.
That one I'm not getting until Christmas because budget and time.
Mm.
But I've loved the first two parts of that overall trilogy. I thought, the hell was the first one? Wings of
Wings of
Liberty.
Liberty.
Wings of Liberty focused on the humans and their storyline. It was like classic Blizzard in regards to storyline and dialogue. A lot of people had opinions because
Mm.
of how cheesy it was, but that's part of the
I'm
heart of what StarCraft is.
I'm one of the people who has opinions.
Obviously, they're positive opinions, though.
Mm. There's a lot good in that game.
And I
I'm not
feel
going to
like,
share my negative opinions because they're going to be controversial.
did you play both or watch Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm?
I played all of Wings of Liberty, and I saw Hearts of the Swarm in various uh, aspects. The biggest, well, I don't want to get into too much, but there's some character interaction and development that doesn't really make any sense given past lore. And I haven't seen the end of Hearts of the Swarm, and I haven't seen any of Legacy of the Void, obviously, but he really needs to shoot her in the face and be done with it, for God's sake.
The end of Heart of the Swarm is relatively controversial for those who have not played or watched it. I'm hoping that Legacy of the Void, which focuses on the Protoss of the side of things, balances things out, and wraps everything the F up. Like, if they want to continue the franchise in StarCraft 3 someday, fine. Blizzard is more than welcome to do that, but wrap up this storyline, please.
Yes, don't pull a Half-Life franchise, which I have Half-Life 2 on my list.
Not Half-Life 3.
Nope, I don't. I also have Portal and Portal 2. The characters and the world that it creates is pretty freaking amazing considering it's just a puzzle game. An arguably point-and-click puzzle game.
But a damn good one at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But just what keeps you going is the characters. Like, if it was just, like, imagine Gladys and Wheatley was not in the game at all, and there was no companion cube. Think of how boring that game would be. You wouldn't be driven to go forward and to unlock more of the story. They did a really good job keeping you pushing forward for more, and I thought that was incredible.
I think one of my favorite parts of Portal 2 is when you get knocked down to the old, abandoned part of this facility and get to see the history of Aperture Labs.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Portal 2, they really added a lot to the overall Portal verse. Especially with Cave Johnson.
Mm-hmm. I remember when it first came out, a lot of people complained that it was too short, that, they beat it in however many hours. And I had two arguments with that. One, it's a puzzle game, so it can't be long, otherwise the puzzles are going to get a little repetitive.
Right, and also your mileage may vary. If you're really good at the puzzles in Portal 2, you're going to go through it very quickly.
The other thing was, if you just straight go through puzzle to puzzle, you miss a lot of interesting side stuff that gives you that story. I spent a lot of time exploring, and it not only added a lot of gameplay time to it, but I think added to my experience.
A lot of nooks and crannies.
Yeah,
And
that's
areas.
It's one of the nice things about many of these types of games. If you play just the pure storyline, some of the storylines are better than others or more solid or this or that. But most of them have a lot of extra lore and side stories and extra characters and little Easter eggs and
Yes.
just,
It's why I still play Skyrim. The main storyline is horrendously bad, But just about everything else is really good.
And
One of
some of these games, the modding community makes it even more entertaining,
the,
including Skyrim. A lot of fun can be had with Skyrim mods.
yeah. Especially considering you can mod your own quests and locations if you know what you're doing.
Hmm.
Let's see. I can't go through a list of video game plots without bringing up Borderlands. There's a world I keep going back to because I love it so much.
I just feel like I didn't play a lot of Borderlands 1, and I played a lot of Borderlands 2. I just feel like the games are too damn long.
I don't think they're that long.
In
I can get
regards
through
to
them quick.
like story time or just like grinding through enemies?
I would probably say more. There's a lot of backtracking, and there's a lot of grinding through enemies. And just like we got to a point where I don't. This isn't a spoiler, but spoiler warning anyways. The part where you start dismembering statues. I'll just say that.
Hmm.
Okay, opportunity.
Yeah, and then a place disappears and moves somewhere else later. I was like, oh, I'm getting
Four.
close to the end of the story. And it turned out I was only like a third of the way through the game. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I actually like that. It was a long. I like that it had a long story to it, and it was.
Maybe it's just I don't
the
have
story.
enough time to play video games anymore.
I know that feeling.
Because one of my complaints about the pre-sequel is that it was a little too short
Yeah, comparatively,
compared to
pre-sequel was short.
Borderlands 2. The pre-sequel was a lot shorter. The story in it is complete. I just when I got to the end, I was like, but I wanted more.
And I think time-wise, Tales of the Borderlands comes after Borderlands 2,
I think so.
mainly because of multiple spoilery things that happen in Tales of Borderlands in regards to certain named characters.
I haven't played that one yet. It's on my list of must acquire.
I would love to play through that one, even though I've watched a playthrough of the first 3 episodes of it, or whatever the terminology is for it.
I think it's episodes.
Yeah. But it looks like a lot of fun, and they stick within that verse very well.
I'll say there was, while the pre-sequel was kind of short, it added a lot of lore. Mostly to the Hyperion Corporation, but it was interesting.
The only thing on my list that we haven't brought up yet is the Oddworld series. I don't know if either of you have played it at all.
No.
I haven't played it, but I'm familiar with it.
These were probably the first games that I really fell in love with in the PlayStation 2 era. I think it was PlayStation 2. Maybe it was the original PlayStation. I don't know. Either way, they were the characters and the world that's involved was very cool. It was very graphic, but PG-13 graphic. But there was a lot of, like, if you thought about what was going on a little bit harder, it was very icky what was going on. And there was a lot of fun characters that interacted in weird ways, and they were all like weird creatures. It was all this like beautiful world building in at least the early games. I didn't play a lot of the other games. I heard, was it Munch's Odyssey is supposed to be really good? I didn't play that one yet. But yeah, the only one on the list that I hadn't mentioned yet was that, so I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
First Oddworld came out on the PlayStation.
Okay.
And there was a re-release of it on the Game Boy.
There's a release on it on Steam. I have it.
The only one on my list that I haven't tossed out, since my list is very, very short, which also recently had a game come out for it, the Halo series, which kind of made the Xbox
Mm,
originally. And Halo 5 came out a couple of weeks ago now.
pretty recently.
Yeah. And overall, it's built up a very interesting universe. And it's nice that all of at least those 5 games, carry that story arc throughout. I don't know about ODST or like Halo Wars, I think was another one. I haven't kept up with some of the other ones, but the only frustrating thing in regards to that storyline is the cliffhangers from each game. I mean, the first one was a solid standalone game, and then Halo 2 came out because it was a really good game with a really great potential for expanding the universe. And then they needed the trilogy to kind of round things out.
Which they said they were going to stop at.
And then Halo 4 came out, which I enjoyed the storyline, as frustrating as it can be for some who played it, especially in regards to the end game. If the end game of 4 was frustrating, as it was to me, the end game of 5 made me even more upset. Like, they've basically written themselves into a corner of now there has to be a Halo 6. Otherwise,
that's just product planning.
yeah, but otherwise they'll go the way of Half-Life 3, and people will rage endlessly.
Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3?
Whichever one everyone is waiting on.
I think people are waiting for both.
And granted, the archetypes that they're using in Halo 5 to create this new story arc within the overall verse, it's good, it's clever, it's interesting, but there's not enough in Halo 5 itself to fully justify and explain why certain characters are doing what they're doing. And I forget which previous Halo kind of had the same situation, where not enough was explained in the standalone game. You had to get the next game to help balance things out. It was either 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And they're kind of repeating that same mistake. Or complication, I should say.
Product planning.
Yeah.
I have the weird situation of only having played Halo 3 and never finishing it, and then I've been watching the achievement hunters play Halo 5, so I have no idea what's going on in the story.
Yeah. Halo 4 covered a lot of ground between 3 and 5. So I'm sure various questions are being raised.
Well, it looks cool watching the achievement hunters play it. Especially since their playthrough, a few of them admitted that when they first got the game, they plowed through it just to like finish it and get achievements and stuff. Jeff even said he played it without sound, so he has no idea what the story was. So when they went in to do co-op play of the story, it was pretty much for most of them their first time seeing the story, even though it was their second time playing.
I don't think I could do that, because I'm all about the story.
Yeah.
Which also on the achievement hunters for Fallout 4, I saw that Jeremy, like the same day as Fallout 4 came out, pretty much within 24 hours, he had a video up of where all the bobbleheads were.
You know, though, Achievement Hunter had to have had an early copy of the game.
True.
And they just had to wait until the game came out in order to release that content, because otherwise it would have been like spoilers, and they might have even broken an NDR. But once the game is released, they can do whatever videos they want. So he probably played through and found all the bobbleheads like a week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, hopefully they at least were able to enjoy the storyline somewhat, rather than plow through it just for the content of videos.
Yeah, and besides the NDA, they if they were using the PC version, they could probably load up the Creationer kit and search for the items and their locations pretty easily, I bet.
I don't know which versions they were using specifically.
Although the SDK isn't out yet for that game, I don't think. Maybe it is.
Knowing the Achievement Hunter is probably the Xbox version.
Hmm.
That's what they usually default to is Xbox.
But yeah, I know a couple gaming places that I go to. They've had the Fallout game for a little while now, like a week or so.
Let's see. I
Because
still
you
have a
got to
couple.
put like 60 to 100 hours into a game before you can actually review it with some of these games.
Yeah.
See, I still had a couple on my list. I want to bring up I have an indie game or a smaller name game or two, like Dust and Elysian Tale.
That is fun.
It was originally on Xbox Arcade. I think it's on Steam now
Hmm.
as well. Really fun game, really interesting world, really good plot, really good character development, I think. A lot of fun, and I cried at the end.
I
Just a
still want to beat that game, but I got stuck in just grinding for stuff and then dying because I was in a bad save state.
Mm. Have you gotten to the haunted marshlands
Uh,
with
I don't
ghosts
think so.
and that place is pretty hard to get through. 'Cause there were some ghosts that were difficult to defeat because there were special things you had to do, and haunted mansions that you would fight your way through it, get to the end, get the item you needed, and then have to be chased out by an invincible spirit that basically forces you to backtrack through very quickly.
No, I have thankfully not hit that point yet.
That part was a little tough, but definitely a worthwhile game. The art was beautiful in that game too.
Hmm. And the voice acting was a lot of fun to listen to.
Oh yes, it was actually through the voice acting that I found that game because I was watching some. There's a group that animates sort of and voice acts strips from BG Cats, and they just kind of do it for fun on the side. And when Dust came out on the Xbox Arcade, some of the voice actors in it also worked on the animated VG Cats, so they were advertising it, and
Cool.
that's how I found out about it. Let's see, but definitely a good game. The Dot Hack series of video games, very interesting plot. It can get a little deep sometimes, especially the first set. Uh, and confusing if you haven't watched the anime first, because they do tie in together.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I was gonna ask, can you play the Dot Hack games not having watched any of the anime series?
the first set, yes. You can play the first Dot Hack set game if you can find it. It's the PlayStation 2 era game. So you probably have to go to Amazon or eBay to find it. You won't find it in stores. But you can play that game set, which doesn't have a colloquial set title. It's just 4 individual games, each with their own title: Dot Hack Infection, Dot Hack Mutation, Dot Hack Outbreak, and Dot Hack Quarantine. While it connects to the anime Dot Hack sign, it's also independent. It's more like Dot Hack sign is a prequel that kind of sets it up, but the game actually has the main characters in the game are different characters. And it's not until the end of this 4 game set that you start to see characters from the anime showing up. And they're more there as kind of like fan service or just to say, yeah, this is all connected. The second set is a little weirder, Dot Hack Roots and Dot Hack GU, because it's the same protagonist in both. But you don't really have to watch the anime to play the game because while the events of the anime are kind of why the character in the video game is doing what he's doing, they sum it up at the beginning of the game, and I don't know, that one was a little weirder. But the plots do get a little heavy. Make you think a bit about stuff. And what else did I have in here? Okami was good. Interesting story based off of a Japanese folklore.
And the artwork for that one looked fantastic.
It's beautiful artwork. I recommend, though, not getting it on the Wii. Because it requires you to paint images on the screen, and the Wii version makes you use the Wii remote to paint images on the screen, and it's very frustrating when it tells you, paint a perfect circle using those motion controls. It doesn't work. There is a
Wii or
place.
Wii U?
Well, it came out on the Wii. I'm sure it's just as complicated on the Wii U, though, because you got to use the...
But probably still the original motion controller, not like the Motion Plus, which helped.
The thing is, the game came out before they released Wii Motion Plus, so I don't know if it'll really make a difference.
Yeah, because the original Wiimote, not the most sensitive when it came to motion controls.
It was a little inaccurate, especially if you were playing in a sunny room.
Hmm.
Sunlight kind of screwed with it. The Motion Plus definitely helped a little. A Wii U re-release where you get to draw them on the gamepad would probably be good, but I doubt Nintendo will bother. But if you're looking for a version that's easier to play, you can get a PS2 version. It came out on the PS2 before it was out on the Wii. Or maybe about the same time. That one, I've heard that one is easier because you just use the thumbsticks to do all the drawing stuff. But the plot was really good, the story was really interesting, and the artwork is beautiful. Let's see, I have some certain Legend of Zelda games have good plot, but trying to decide which ones are better than others can lead to a bit of a controversial conversation.
That really is a personal preference thing.
Yes. I know some of the ones I like weren't necessarily popularly received in general, and I disagree with reasons as to why, but those are just personal reasons.
And
So,
I know for me, one of my preferred ones is the Legend of Twilight, Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess.
Mainly because it is the first Legend of Zelda game where I properly finished the entire plot and got to the end.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to actually finish any other Legend of Zelda game to completion.
Some of them are hard.
Most
They're very
of them are hard.
time-consuming, especially the handheld ones.
Oh yeah, the handheld ones. In that case, I've also finished the first two DS Zelda games that were out. Phantom Hourglass.
Phantom Hourglass, and the train one, was it?
No, Train was
Spirit
the
Tracks?
third one. Spirit
Third
Tracks
one.
was third. There was the Phantom Hourglass and another one.
I can't remember what it was. I haven't played any of them, unfortunately.
I know the one where you were on a little boat was a lot of fun.
Wind Waker.
No, for the DS before the Wind Waker re-release.
Oh,
I don't think it was Phantom Hourglass. I think it was the other one.
I don't know.
That's gonna bother me.
There was another one on a boat. Wind Waker was interesting because when it first came out, nobody liked it. But over time, it grew on people, and it was the art style that turned people off. At first, they were like, that's not Legend of Zelda, it's all cartoony, we wanted it more serious.
Yeah, I think
But
that was one
after
of
a
the
while,
first ones in that style too.
it was the first one to use that kind of cell shading, softer look. But after a while, people played it. The art style grew on people, and when they actually played it, it actually has a really good plot to it, and it's a lot of fun to play. And the re-release on the Wii U is easier to play because they took out a rather tedious part. There's a portion in the original game on the GameCube where you have to fish for fragments of the Triforce, and there are like 8 of them scattered about. and it got to be tedious to find the treasure maps, then pay to have the treasure maps deciphered, then go out there and fish them up. So in the Wii U re-release, they just kind of, instead of fishing for fragments of them, you just, like, 3 of the spots have a completed Triforce, and the other ones are just like, here's a bunch of rupees, so that makes it a little easier. Something like that. They made it easier, less tedious. Excuse me. I like Twilight Princess. I don't know why people didn't like it, but I know some people didn't like it. I liked Skyward Sword. A lot of people didn't like that one. I think, again, the motion controls kind of hampered that one.
I wanted to play that one. I just never got around to it.
I think it's good. I think the artwork is really good, and I like the plot. And I like the level designs. But I think there was an advertising faux pas where they advertised that you could control Link's sword with the motion controller, and people believed that meant that it was a 1-to-1, and it's not.
No.
It sort of is. You can control the direction he slashes, but it's mostly determining between vertical, horizontal, or diagonal.
Mm.
And I think that a lot of people pissed a lot of people off.
You know, looking it up, apparently the one I'm thinking of was Phantom Hourglass. That was the one on the 3DS that I played and enjoyed. Spirit Tracks was the one after that. I played it but did not finish.
Mm.
I think I got stuck on some part.
There's a lot of good Zelda games, and then some not so good ones, and then some that there's like 3 that nobody talks about.
They do not exist.
They're on systems that nobody remembers anymore. Nobody even knew what those systems were when they were out. Let's see. I put down Star Wars The Force Unleashed, the first one. Kind of short, but a good game with an interesting plot. Second one I didn't finish because it was feeling short again. A little retconny. But it's kind of spoilery as to why it's retconny. So I'll leave that out. But not bad. And I started playing Undertale today, and it's looking promising. Interesting world building. It keeps going back and forth from humorous, cute, and adorable to soul-crushing tears of pain and agony.
That's the general consensus from what I've heard about that game.
Are you doing the... Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 general questions to try to avoid as many spoilers as possible. Did you get past the tutorial? The very long tutorial. Okay.
Yes.
Are you going Paragon, or are you going the other direction?
Renegade.
I believe the two big the consensus for the names for them are Pacifist and I believe the other one is
Bloodlusting Murder.
I believe genocide is the term that people use. Genocide. I'm going Pacifist.
Okay. Maybe when I play, I'll go genocide then.
I'm going Pacifist now until it gets to a point where I feel like I'm dealing with someone that's like, no, I'm just gonna. But I'm trying to go Pacifist. I screwed it up really early at the end of that tutorial.
A lot of people don't know how that plays out in either direction, so you're not the only one. I saw a Let's Play where I'm like, oh, I would have done that differently, and wow, you sure fucked that up.
Yeah, I didn't realize how I was supposed to do it to get the result I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing, if you reset the game changes a little bit. Because I reset to redo that part because I was not happy with what I did, and I'm like, I'll allow myself one reset because it was still early in the game.
Yep.
And the characters the second time around acknowledge that you've reset the game. Some of the characters will go, "You look familiar. Have we met before?" And there's one character in particular at the very end of the tutorial who plainly called me out on it. It's like, oh, you think you can just do whatever you want and reset the game because you didn't? Well, I remember what you did last time. You did this. I
Oh my
know what
God.
you did. It's
That's
straight out
amazing.
called me out on it. It's like, you did this last time and you thought you could change the world and reset the game, but I know what
Holy
you
shit.
did.
That is amazing.
That would
makes
really
I was like,
bother me,
oh.
but that's a really nice touch.
That turns a
It was.
4-star game into a 5-star game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't just okay, you know that. Okay, that's creepy. Breaking the fourth wall there.
You gotta go into your app data folder and delete all record of the game.
But yeah, it's been good so far. And I did think of one game that I was, because we mentioned plots that were a little disappointing, and I want to call out Fable 3 for its ending.
Yeah, I know we've gotten that on recording, either on this show or on NSFWN.
I know I've mentioned it before, but I think that they copped out on that ending. It was so anticlimactic and so lame. Because, like, in the first Fable, it ends with a big boss fight, which was cool. That worked. It's the end of the game, big boss fight. It's what you want. The second game did not end with a big boss fight, but there weren't really any boss fights in the second game. But the ending had really good story behind it, which made up for it. So while you don't fight an end boss, I personally was enveloped in the plot. So I didn't even notice. I was like, that was a cool ending. The third game had a pathetic boss fight and an anticlimactic plot ending. So it was kind of like a double whammy of, oh, the game's over. Basically, as soon as you become King of Albion, the game goes downhill, plot-wise.
Yeah, if we're gonna start wrapping things up on this talkie point with disappointing ones, I would have to toss dysfunctional systems out there. Because I was having a lot of fun with that visual novel. I really enjoyed the storyline despite some things that went down. And the ending cut off at a point where I was not expecting it, even remotely. And unfortunately, it was one of those Kickstarter games where they were hoping to do a series, but there's not going to be a part 2. So you're just stuck in limbo.
I remember me telling you I'd only watched so many episodes of that, and when I told you what I was up to, you were like, yeah, that's all you need to see. Maybe watch the next one after that, and then just that's all you need to see.
Yeah. Once you get a cutscene, you're good. The rest of it is like the build up to episode 2, but there's no episode 2.
That is disappointing and unfortunate.
Doesn't help that was the first visual novel I did for Game Break, and I had a lot of fun with it. So it kind of made for a weird perspective on the overall series. Thankfully, what is it? World End Economica, episodes 2 and 3 are either complete or in the works. So I should be safe on that one.
I hope there's a sequel to the Moon, because that one was interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, I want to ask you, CJ, I can't remember the name of it, but that quirky little mini golf game you played.
Vertiginous Golf.
That one. What's your good, bad? Do you want more?
I want more because steampunk mini golf in the sky is a fantastic basis for a game. Adding in an interesting plot to that, with various political shenanigans from those in the sky and those on the ground, I was really intrigued by that, and I thought it could go somewhere. The curveball at the end just made me go WTF.
Mm.
there needs to be an expansion or a continuation of that to explain a lot of the WTF.
Mm. I remember watching that one and was like, huh, wait, that's it? But,
Yeah, and after recording that, I had to watch the recording back and like, wait, that's what happened? That, how did that happen? Why did that happen? What did I miss? And for Justin, if you'd like to toss in any last second game that was maybe lackluster or disappointing, or you wish maybe there was more to it, now would be the opportunity before we start migrating on.
I wish that Doom 3 had a better story.
Wasn't
Not
quite
that people
satisfying.
not that people come to that game for the story, but the game was so good. If they just worked it a little bit more, it could have been really great. And that's kind of disappointing because otherwise the game is really fun. If
Did
you
the
like,
expansion help at all?
no, it might have actually made it worse. Like the problem is that the first 2/3 of the game, nothing is really happening, except you walk into the same hallway over and over again, copy pasted, and then the same imps come out at you. It's only like once you get to hell that things really start getting fun, and even the stuff after that.
I feel like you could say that about Doom 1 and 2, though.
Yeah, like I said, people didn't really come to the games for the story.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree about the failure of Duke Nukem Forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never even seen a complete playthrough of that game because all the Let's Players I follow have never been able to bring themselves to play that game for more than an hour.
For anyone out there that wants to see the full playthrough of that game in all its glory, I would recommend Jesse Cox, who did a binge play
Oof.
of that while drinking.
You'd have to.
So the further he gets, the more he drinks.
It's the only way to get through that game, from what I understand.
Yes, there is a lot of ridiculous and absurdity in Duke Nukem Forever, and not the good type.
Mm.
You could equate it to Sonic Boom
Oof.
or Sonic 06 in regards to some things are just not even remotely necessary for this game. These are unnecessary mechanics or plot points. Just skip them outright.
Yeah, I had heard ignoring everything else, even just as a shooter, it failed.
It got pretty wonky at times. Which is a shame because the character has a solid lore built up around it. And the previous games were entertaining.
Duke Nukem 3D was very entertaining. And the plot wasn't half bad.
It'd
I
be
wouldn't say
nice.
it was anything.
Yeah, it'd be
Go ahead.
nice if eventually they come up with a new version of that game or an addition to the franchise that does it justice.
It'd probably help if the game didn't get passed around from like 3 different developers over the course of a good 20 years, or 10 years, or however long it was.
Yeah, developer Hot Potato did not help that game. Alright, I'm going to move us along, but to all our viewers and listeners out there, by all means, post in the comments what your favorite games are in regards to story, lore, universe building, character arcs, all that good stuff.
Anything you
Continue the
want us to do
conversation.
for Game Break?
Yeah, if there's anything you want to recommend for Game Break for 2016, we are looking for suggestions and recommendations as we start figuring all that out.
Mm-hmm.
I already have an idea for mine, but I need to test run that a bit. We shall see. But moving on, Let's go to the highlights reel, where this week is just book bundles, because nothing really popped out in regards to other types of news.
Plus, we did spend over an hour talking about video games.
Yeah, we kinda did. So, rolling right into book bundles, Story Bundle came out with another one, which keeps them at 4 book bundles at the moment. The latest one is on the sci-fi spectrum. And as per their new usual, if you want to get the first tier of books within the bundle, it is $3 minimum in order to get the first tier, which is 5 books. If you go up to $12, you unlock the second tier of an extra 4 books in this overall bundle. If you were to do the $3 and up pricing structure, you'd get The Serpent's Head by Brian Young, Terminal Mind by David Walton, which apparently was a winner of the Philip K. Dick Award, The Lead Cloak, Book 1 of the Lattice Trilogy by Eric Hanberg, The Gene Hunter by Simon Cowen, and The Debt Collector Season 1 by Susan K. Quinn. If you went $12 and up, you'd unlock the second tier for Operation Montauk by Brian Young, The Ruins of Karzalek by Ruby Lyons Drake, Artificial Evolution by Joseph R. Lalo, and The Debt Collector Season 2 by Susan K. Quinn. I've actually read some stuff by Joseph Lalo. He's a very entertaining writer. And I believe also the coordinator for this particular bundle. And this one just kicked off recently, so as of this recording, you have a whole 22 days and change to go check it out. And they're still running their historical fiction, Dark Justice, and the NaNoWriMo writing tools bundles. So go over to Story Bundle, check them out. There's all sorts of good stuff over there. And we missed this one last week, so there's not as much time on this one, but Humble Bundle is tossing up a comics bundle of Peanuts. All the good old Charlie Brown comics of old. Their style is $1 up, you get the first tier. Average pricing currently at $10.80. You unlock the second tier, and if you go $15 or more, you unlock the third tier. If you went for just $1 and up, you'd unlock Peanuts, Happiness is a Warm Blanket, which is a classic. Batter Up, Charlie Brown, and Peanuts Volumes 1 through 3, which is a pretty solid collection for just $1 and up. I actually have a majority of these comics in print, like hard copies already, because I refuse to get rid of those ever. They're entertaining. If you went for the average tier, you'd unlock Peanuts Volumes 4 through 6, Waiting for the Great Pumpkin, Peanuts, The Beagle Has Landed, Snoopy's Thanksgiving, A Valentine for Charlie Brown, and Peanuts, It's Tokyo, Charlie Brown. I do not remember that one at all. I don't remember them going to Tokyo ever. If you went all out with $15 or more, you would unlock The Complete Peanuts, 1950 to 1952, Volume 1, which, to be fair, doesn't sound overly complete. But I know it's still a solid amount of comics. You'd also get Peanuts, Where Beagles Dare, and Snoopy versus the Red Baron, which is always an entertaining series of comics. And like I said, this one actually started last week, so as of this recording, you only have 6 days and change to go check that out. So grab it while you can.
My guess is they started at about the time the new movie aired, because that was
About a week or so ago, I think.
last Friday, I think it came out.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. It looks adorable.
It does. Not so much when in theaters, though, because movie theaters are expensive.
Yeah. And rolling on to productivity and inspiration. What have we been up to since last week? Well, since last week's recording, I finally leveled up to level 30. I'm now caught up with some people.
All the best perks are at level 30.
Hopefully the level cap is considerably higher than level 30.
Hopefully you're not even halfway there.
Hmm. I'll take my time reaching the level cap.
There's a lot of
There's no
paid
rush.
DLC in your future if you want to get past the level cap.
Stupid DLCs.
Just get a season pass.
Can I just get the Game of the Year version? Just wait for that to come out?
Maybe it'll be on Steam discount.
Yeah, just wait for a Steam sale. I'll be all good. And I've also taken some time to properly outline a lot of my 2015 deadlines, which are piling up fast, just so I have a better idea of what I'm up to over the next month and a half at this point. It is not encouraging because there's a lot of challenges in my way, from health to just various workloads and hunting for new daily adventures that I'll get into details about eventually, once those actually solidify. Or don't. We shall see. And I really haven't been up to much else. I haven't been productive in NaNo. I haven't really been inspired. I've been laying pretty low over the past week. How has Will fared since last week?
Let's see. Most of my time since last week and the beginning of the month, I've been focusing very heavily on this next and final chapter of My Roommate's a Stripper. Because it's the final chapter, I have to make sure that I finish everything I intend to finish and tie up all the loose ends. And I've been noticing as I go through that my experience over writing this is coming through as I'm really, I don't want to say second guessing myself, but always pushing myself to write every sentence as appropriately as it can be and not fall into bad writing practices and stuff. So it's been an interesting challenge. Writing the final chapter of a story is very different than writing any other chapter of the story.
And
I'm not done.
oh, there was a pause.
I was wondering if anyone would have any commentary on that statement or not. Apparently not. But that's fine.
I also got distracted by live updates in the show notes.
I noticed that. They're very distracting.
I haven't actually written a final chapter of anything that I've written yet.
Aside from NaNo, I've never done it before. So this is really interesting, especially since I've been working on this story for years. So it's really weird to think that this story that's been a big part of my life for the past few years is coming to an end. Yesterday, though, I had a relaxing day. Ed had the day off, and we went down to the Tanger outlets over at Foxwoods, and that was my first time there just for shopping. I think it was Ed's first time there just for shopping, too, as opposed to working. We had some fun. Screwed around at the stores, took advantage of all of the coupons. Ed was super happy because he went down a few pant sizes, namely 5.
Oh my. I'm kind of amazed he got a whole day off.
Yeah, he gets like a day or two off every week now. At least for now. We'll see how things change starting Black Friday, but for now.
Then all bets are off.
But it was a fun time. It's a nice little mall. It's quiet on the weekdays when there's not a lot of people around. I'm sure on the weekend, considering it's in a casino, it gets a bit busier. Also got to try milk tea for the first time. Very tasty. And other than that, as I said, I got Undertale, so my soul is forfeit. We'll see how that goes. More on that next week.
So for me, I've kind of listed this out into priorities. Priority number 0, struggling to balance so much going on in November that I have to literally put things on hold. I have basically like a calendar of events and deadlines of projects that I'm working on, and I have to basically put all of that on hold because I've got more important things to work on right now. Speaking of which, priority number 1 is the business plan, which is finally underway with some real traction. I've been dinking around with it, and then at one point I lost the book that CJ lent me, and so I had to buy a new one and wait for that to come in, so there was a delay there. But I'm inspired. I've read a lot of the book already, and pretty much ready to write, and we'll have updates on that eventually. Priority number 2, I did that live stream and got to 15,000 words, and I haven't written a ton since then. So I'm still ahead of the NaNo schedule, but I'm falling behind what my schedule was supposed to be. So I'm trying to decide if I want to pick it up where NaNo is supposed to go or really push myself this weekend to get back on track to my other schedule. So we'll see how this weekend goes because this week is pretty busy, and I don't know when I'm going to find time to write. I've been doing some writing at work in the meantime. And priority number ? Guitar Hero Live is pretty fun. I bought that for myself for a Christmas present. One could argue that the hour before this podcast, I probably didn't have to play Guitar Hero Live. I could have written in my novel. But those people are bad people, and they shouldn't judge me for my decisions. Or maybe they should judge me and inspire me to put down the guitar and pick up the pencil. Proverbial.
But think of all that time you could have been making Mario Maker levels.
Oh God, don't even no.
What if all your work in Guitar Hero is actually for writing? It's research. You can incorporate it into your NaNo story, but you can't unless you experience it yourself. So that's just research for your NaNo.
I've already put like 40 hours into it, and I just got it a week ago, so...
It's very thorough research.
Very thorough research. I didn't put 40 hours into it, but I played more than I should.
All right. And, of course, to our viewers and listeners, by all means, let us know what you've been up to over the past week. How have you been faring? For our fellow Nanoers, are you ahead? Are you staying steady? Or are you behind like some of us? And by some of us, I mean me. Let us know in the comments below. And unfortunately, that's going to be the show for this week. We talked a little long in regards to the talkie point, but we had fun, and hopefully you all did too. And as a reminder, every week, if we have entertained you in any way, shape, or form, have fun on the YouTube channel. Go check out some of the other episodes of Word Ninjas Live. Go check out the Game Break series. Go see some of the shenanigans we've been up to at various events. We have all sorts of fun stuff on there for you. You can also talk to us on social media over on Twitter at FCWordNinja, over on Tumblr, fcwordninja.tumblr.com, and Facebook, facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. Converse with us, chat with us, ask us questions, give us recommendations for games and books and things to do. And if you want to check out any of our shiny baubles that we've put together, go to the Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters. We are in the process of updating various designs for some of the buttons and bookmarks and coming up with ideas for other syllables. So check out what we have now, grab stuff before they get upgraded and archived into the vault of remembrance forever. If you want to track me down, no one has any luck with that lately, including the crew sometimes. But best bet is my Tumblr, fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. And if you want to try me on NaNo, the NaNo ID for that is YGJunkie85, because that's who I was in 2003 when I first started. And even that, I'm having trouble keeping up with because the NaNo settings don't forward NaNo mail to my regular email like it used to, and that is still frustrating me. I have yet to get that to work the way it should, but I'm trying to be better about checking that. Where can people track down Will?
Mostly you can find me on my Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. That's darkhom.tumblr.com. I am still occasionally doing updates for My Roommate's a Stripper while I'm still writing it for my roommate's a stripper.tumblr.com. I suppose when I finish the story I'll have to possibly rename that page and use it for other writing activities. And then, of course, my Patreon where you can support me is patreon.com/darkhom.
And how about Justin?
You can find me at mechanicaljustin.com when I'm not busy, and also on Twitter at MJOnTap when I'm not busy, which has not been very frequent this week, but hopefully we'll be able to pick that up soon.
And with that, it is time for us to head on out and maybe catch up on NaNo or do other creative things, or maybe just play Guitar Hero for 40 more hours. Who's to say?
Now, I feel like you're judging me, and I feel like you're predicting the future at the same time.
I can't say anything. I have Halo 5 on my Xbox One, and I have Fallout 4 on the PC, just staring at me judgingly.
At least you can record those for Game Break, theoretically.
Undertale.
Fallout 4, yes. I haven't tested the streaming of the Xbox One to Windows 10, which theoretically is a thing. I really should test that at some point. Thank you for the reminder that I'll probably forget before I even fall asleep tonight. But with that, we shall bid you all adieu and see you all next week for episode 118. Have a good week, everyone. Go write some words, go be creative, go have some fun.